You're listening to CIA, Coffee, Intel, and Anxiety, a podcast from retired CIA officers Jeff and Pete. Drawing from decades in the intelligence world, they offer real stories, sharp analysis, and honest reflections on the pressure, decisions, and daily chaos that come with a life of secrets. Add coffee, a dry sense of humor, and a friendship forged under fire, and you've got a podcast like no other.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Once again, I'm Peter Warmka, former CIA officer, and I'm accompanied by my good friend.
Hi, I'm Jeff Sano. I'm also a retired CIA operations officer. And between Pete and I, we've probably been to every country on the planet and some that aren't actually countries anymore. We've traveled a lot. We've been exposed to many different types of security practices. We've learned many critical security practices to protect not just ourselves physically, but our electronics and all the things that we carry with us. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about travel security. There's a couple of fundamentals. Number one, don't break the law where you're going. Just do that. If you don't break the law, it's kind of like here in the US. If you don't break the law, you never have to engage with the police. It's the same thing internationally.
Big caveat, though, you need to do your research. Don't assume that laws in other countries are like the laws here in the United States, and that's what gets a lot of people into trouble.
Absolutely. So what he's saying is you have to know where you're going, know what the laws are, know how they're enforced, and pay attention to that. Even our great neighbors to the north, the Canadians, big shout out to maple syrup and everything that they produce. Um, their laws are very different than ours in some respects. Personally, I'm an NRA instructor. I carry a concealed weapon with me every place that the state allows me to. It's not all US states. But if I try taking that firearm into Canada just because I forget, it's in the trunk of my car, whatever, and it's discovered, then I will be subject to Canadian firearm laws. And those are very different than the United States, especially for pistols and for handguns. They have a national freeze on the sale, purchase, or import of handguns. So even taking it in by accident, accidents, forgetfulness, those are not excuses to get away from following the laws. So be very careful, learn the local laws, know what you're doing, do not break the local laws.
Well, Jeff,
Second,
sorry to interrupt, but remember, you're talking about firearms. There was that particular island in the Caribbean where a number of individuals were arrested because they found within their carry-on or little luggage some ammunition, or maybe a one or two rounds, right? That they
yeah,
didn't even know that were there. They used that bag when they traveled somewhere and they went to the firing range, and then they cleaned it out, but they missed those, and those were found in there, probably through the X-ray, were found in their luggage, and then all of a sudden they were arrested, and they
took
had a
them
lot.
about a week to get out, didn't it? Something like
Yep,
that.
yep, and there were several of those cases.
Yeah, yeah, and I can appreciate that because I have loose ammo all over my gun bag. But if I'm packing a bag to travel, especially through any airport, I make sure it's empty completely before I pack it because let's be honest, the folks that are doing security for airlines, they're not to be joked with or trifled with. They don't have a sense of humor. They have a very hard job to do, a very serious job. We need to respect them, and you're not going to kid your way out of, oh, sorry, I left that couple rounds of ammunition in there. They're not going to see the humor in that.
So when you talk about laws, what are some of the biggest things that get Americans probably more than anybody into trouble when they're traveling to certain countries? What kind of things have you seen?
Well, one of the big ones, certainly in the Middle East, is alcohol consumption. And in this country, as long as you're not driving with an open beer in your hand, saluting the officer as you're going by him, if you're smart and reasonable, you're not going to have an issue. I'm not advocating for drinking. That's not what I'm doing at all. But many countries, they have a very dim view of people who drink and drive. They have a very dim view of people who consume alcohol and do almost anything. Also, let's just be honest with each other. Drinking alcohol impairs your ability to make good decisions. If you're walking around, name me a capital city that you've been to, Pete.
Bucharest.
If you're walking around Bucharest and you're, a couple sheets into the wind, you're subject to criminal activity because the bad guys are going to see that you're a little intoxicated. Law enforcement may take a dim view of you being intoxicated. Even a city like Bangkok, where people are intoxicated pretty much all the time, and it's quite the party city. And I love Bangkok. Lived there for 3 years. Fabulous place, fabulous food, fabulous people. But if you're out there drinking, the guys that are out there at night looking for targets are going to find you.
Oh
So
yeah, easy.
I would discourage certainly any excess alcohol consumption or any alcohol consumption at all because it's not going to make things go well. Other countries in the Middle East, if you are publicly intoxicated, the fines will go up to almost $30,000 in the Emirates. That's what they will fine you, plus imprisonment if you are publicly intoxicated. And if you do this during a celebrated religious month called Ramadan, the penalties are so much worse. They are so much more strictly enforced. So be very careful with alcohol. In Egypt, if you're publicly drunk, you get flogged. How'd you like to be flogged because you had one beer too many for dinner? Nah, not me. Saudi Arabia, they also do flogging. It's 80 lashes for a man if he is consuming alcohol in public. I don't know about you, Pete, brother, but I don't really want to get 80 lashes. I think what's the women's punishment there? I think it's less. It's 40 for a woman. I don't want the woman's punishment.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to be very careful with where you choose to drink. Anything else you want to add on that piece, Pete?
Well, I mean, we were just talking about this example where you can get in trouble by what you say. For example, in the case of Thailand, they have uh, they have a president. You know, no, I'm sorry, king. I'm sorry, a king. And if you say something that's derogatory or could be taken as derogatory regarding the king, that is an offense, and you can be locked up for that. So a lot of it comes down. There's a lot of different things like that. What you say, what you do, what you carry. I mean, drugs are a big issue too. And the thing is that I get the impression that there's so few of these cases that are actually come to light, in our press, or that people, that people will hear about. It's only once in a great while, maybe because of where that, what's going on with that particular country that somebody might highlight. Take, for example, Brittany Griner, right? The fact that she was arrested because I think she had on her some maybe it was medical marijuana, whatever the case was, and she got arrested for that. But it was in Russia, I think, was the reason why that maybe became so well a case so talked about and covered in the press here. Then you have, I would be we're talking about the case in North Korea where this young man, Otto, a warm beer, I think his name is, who was arrested. He was in the mission group, and I would imagine that this mission group would have sort of given them sort of a brief about what you got to be careful about when you go. I don't know if they did that or not, but apparently he didn't get the message when at one evening, he was challenged by somebody to take down a poster of the president and
Yep.
he did, Kim, and he did. It was a challenge. He took it down, but I think it was even caught on video. And I think most of you would remember that story. He was locked away. He was tortured. I mean, eventually he was released and got a lot of press once again because this is North Korea. And unfortunately, he died just a few days after his release. So there's a lot of these cases going on, but only a few of them come to our attention. The issue is much more serious than many people, could imagine.
That's a good lead in. Let me go a little bit further on that. What you're talking about is the local political climate. Even in countries that are our allies that are normally peaceful, you mentioned Thailand already. Thailand, as I said, is a wonderful country. It's a wonderful tourist destination, wonderful scuba diving, wonderful beaches, wonderful people. But if you're going there during the election season, You have the military deployed in force on all subway platforms. It's an elevated subway, it's an elevated train. On all those trains, you have the military out everywhere. And so, as with all military and all law enforcement, they don't have a sense of humor. You don't mess with them. You respect them, you give them distance, you thank them, and then you keep on going. Me, I make it a point every time I walk by a cop who's posted up doing something, I always say thank you for your service. Or if I see him at the gas station, just to pay him that little bit of respect. Who knows? I could get pulled over the very next day, and maybe they'll recognize me. Probably not. I'll still get a ticket, or they'll recognize me, and I'll still get a ticket. But at any rate, you have to be very aware of what the climate is politically and culturally at that time. Uganda, another country in East Africa that has a pretty good tourist economy, that goes through terrible violence during the elections. Now, it does tend to be focused on the communities that are not in power at the time, but nonetheless, do you want to go to a country that is going through election turmoil? Frankly, it could be going to France. They shut down their entire subway system whenever they all the bus drivers go on strike or something to that effect. There's plenty of this that happens in what we would consider to be modern Western states. So we have to be careful and use very good judgment when we're planning for that. And of course, if we plan a vacation 6 months from now, as we should be planning out that far ahead, get good discount tickets, the discount hotel prices, and then sometime within the next 6 months, something happens. And so you still have to be flexible and be able to adapt
Mhm.
to those things.
Well, little incident to share. This is like shortly after. Well, it was after we were going to go to. My family and I were going to go to Egypt, and we were going to do the cruise in the Nile. We were all excited, and then 9/11 happened. So we definitely said no, time is not right. We decided to go 1 year later, but there still was this sort of this lingered for a long time. And I remember we were living in Belgium. We flew to France, and from France we were going to go directly to Luxor, and there was a young lady at the counter said, "You're American. Aren't you worried to go to Egypt?" And I said, "Well, we're going." And what we did do there, the only people that knew that we were Americans was the tour operator because we had to give them our documents. But to everybody else, we did not say we were Americans. We said that we were from Spain. And I mean, we speak fluent Spanish. So we conversed with everybody, even people that were, on the table sitting with us as part of the tour. We only spoke in Spanish. And we felt that we didn't have a target on us because no one, considered us that we were American. It's just kind of like some of the things that you could do. Not everybody can speak another foreign language, of course, but it was, the situation that we were encountered at that particular time and a precaution that we decided to take to make it a bit more, make it safer for us.
And I'm going to just touch on a couple more of these tragedies that happened where you would not expect them to. There was the attack on the Westgate Mall in Nairobi, Kenya. And
Yep.
that was it's a beautiful shopping mall like you might find in Baltimore or Miami or any place else. And these four folks attacked it and killed 70 people in that attack. And this is where you got to pay attention. As soon as things start to go south, you have to try and find a way out. You have to escape. I mean, the U.S. government, as they promote the anti-terrorism mentality, their thing is run, hide, fight. I agree with that. But the first thing you need to do is run, run, run and get as far away of any kind of violence, sound of gunshots, anything like that. You want to run again. If that doesn't work, you can hide. That's what they did in the Nairobi shopping mall. There were groups of people hidden, I think, in the refrigerator for one of the restaurants, as I recall correctly. So you got to be smart. And I hate to come back to closer to home and more recently there was the tragedy down in Aruba of the young lady, I believe, who was killed on the beach. And if you Google Aruba safety, it comes back that it's generally considered a safe definition. However, travelers still need to be aware of potential risk and take precautions. Goes back to what we've talked about. Be
I mean,
smart.
people that, then there have been cases where people have, gotten seriously injured, or, maybe lost their life. But uh, short of that, there's so many different things that can happen to you when you're in these countries. So many of them, regarding, pickpockets, people that's, holding you up, whether they're using a knife or a gun. I had a number of cases where I saw, especially these type of things happening when you're maybe, even if you're in a vehicle, okay, you're in a vehicle and you're going somewhere, and all of a sudden there's a bit of a bottleneck in the traffic. Maybe it's a stoplight, or maybe there's just a traffic jam. And I still remember an individual. This is in Mexico, and I was coming back from the American school where I dropped off my kids, and the car I had, well, was driving at that particular time, did not have air conditioning. It was a hot day, and so I had the window rolled down halfway, but I had the door locked. And I'm sitting back from the traffic light, maybe three cars back, and through I'm looking at some correspondence that I have in the car as I'm waiting for the light to change. Out of the peripheral of my eye, my left eye, I see someone approaching the vehicle. And as I look, it is a gentleman who's dressed in gym, stylish gym clothes, and he had a headset on, and with those days they had Walkmans. He was listening to his Walkman supposedly. I could see at that moment his hand coming through the window, and he had a sharp object. I think it was a knife or a screwdriver. I don't know what it was. And he was like looking, and I jumped over to the passenger seat. It was so quick, and he could not reach me. He was like this far from my neck, and he was saying, "Give me your watch," right? And I just kind of, then my reaction is I just like laid it on the horn, honking, horn, and everybody was looking at him, and then he walked away. But I mean, these things can happen anywhere. In Brazil, where I spent a lot of time, there is so many motorcycles out there. A lot of them are messengers that are delivering mail, but there's also a lot of criminals that will use these motorcycles. And it's not like they go behind your vehicle. No, they don't respect the lanes. They will go through the lanes between vehicles, and they're constantly going through, and especially at traffic lights, they might look inside the car, and if they see a lady's purse, or a laptop or something of value, and if they want it, they will pull out a gun, they'll tap the window, and you better give it to them. If you don't give it to them, they will shoot you. I mean, so you got to know whether it's the different dangers in these different places, and how you can make yourself a target.
And how to avoid them. And I'm going to refer back again, talking about the tourism industry and travelers. Always use legitimate vehicles for your transportation. Preferably, you get the hotel to organize a vehicle for you if you need to go someplace. If you're traveling on business, they'll be more than happy to organize a rental car with a driver so you don't have to worry about local laws. You want to spend the money to do it right to protect yourself, because at the end of the day, yeah, you may save $100, but what's it going to cost you if someone sticks a screwdriver through the window of your car and gets your wallet or your passport, things of that nature? Um, there are so many scams going on in the world today that, oh my goodness, we'll talk about the details of the scams later. But one of the common ones is changing money.
Oh, big one.
When you go to a foreign country, change money only at the official money changing locations. I'm going to say this with some degree of certainty. Every airport has a money changing operation right by the international arrivals terminal. So you can walk through, you take your however much cash, they'll give you local currency. Are they going to give you the best rate? Probably not. Are they going to give you the safest, most convenient rate? Yeah, probably they will. So you don't have to change the lock, get to the hotel, they can help you. Hotels don't give you the best rate either. But again, it's safety and security that we're worried about more than anything else.
Regarding changing money, I mean, when you're paying for services, even though you talk about different scams, but taxis, I know a lot of places, and this even they attempted this on me, where you're paying maybe with a larger note, and you expect change back, and all of a sudden they switch the bill on you, and they say, no, you only gave me this, and then what are you going to do? It's kind of like you're caught, like, man, did I make a mistake? And you're not going to start to argue with them because they're going to be like certain that you paid them with a smaller bill. Then of course, if you have a little bit of alcohol and everything else too, I mean that makes yourself a bigger target. And so they'll swap the bills out, and then you end up paying triple maybe for what your fare was. Somebody gave me some advice a while back, and I thought it was pretty interesting. He said that before you get into that taxi, go behind the taxi, take a picture of the taxi's license plate, and make sure that the taxi driver sees you do that. Because if they have any inkling of maybe, conducting kind of some kind of shenanigan on you, the fact that you're aware and you take a picture of the plate and everything, it's like less likely that they're going to try to attempt anything.
Yep, that's a very good suggestion. Couple other things that we should do before we even get on a plane. Make copies of all your critical documents.
Hmm.
Make sure you have a copy of your passport. Maybe a copy of your US driver's license, copies of your visa, copies of your itinerary. If you have travel insurance, make sure you have copies of that. If you're carrying prescription drugs, make sure you carry them in the prescription drug bottle. Sometimes, I take a couple pills every day. It's nice to put them all in a Ziploc bag, and I know which ones are which. But no customs official is ever going to recognize that, and then they may just confiscate them. So make sure you do that to be smart. Um, you want to make sure and share your itinerary with the significant people in your life, whether it's your mother, your father, brother, sister, whatever the case may be. Um, and then there's another special program that U.S. embassies offer. It's called the STEP program, which stands for Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. It doesn't cost anything. You put your information in there. They'll give you real time updates on the weather or any other information. They'll get local information for local embassy. Where is it located? What are contact details for that? And you should write down those contact details. I had an example here handy. Oh, here we go. Of the U.S. Embassy in Uganda. If you go to the website for the U.S. Embassy for Uganda, you're going to get links to all the emergency services that they offer. You're going to get telephone numbers for the U.S. Embassy, both during normal working hours and from inside the country, and during normal working hours outside the country, as well as emergency contacts. And
Mhm.
that's what it looks like. Whoops, can't see it. It's one piece of paper, and you got it. You stick it in with your travel documents. Something comes up, you lose your passport, you're sick, you have to go to the hospital, and that happens sometimes. People get really sick. So you want to make sure you have that little bit of protection with you. Um, Talking
I
about
think that
devices. Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
to talk about mention that I think is really important to do your research in advance. And every country is a little bit different, so you want to use multiple resources and seeing the recommendations. I mean, you got the U.S. State Department that puts out their advisories, their recommendations, and you have a number of other entities that provide that type of information, to include travel books like Lonely Planet and other ones. And the reason why I mentioned that in particular, I had an incident. I was traveling to Budapest, I'm sorry, in Hungary. And I read the Lonely Planet section about, scams, what's the common scam going on. And they mentioned that, you could stop by somebody that's on the street, they start up a conversation with you, and then they want to practice their English, and then they suggest, hey, let's just get a coffee around the corner or a bar. And they at the end of the day, they're just, they're working with somebody that's insider who has that offer you these drinks, and you never ask what the price is, and then when you're going to pay, they turn the menu in, and that's the stated price. And so I went to Budapest, and it was like the second day I was there. I was walking down one of these main streets that don't have this pedestrian, a lot of people, beautiful, beautiful city. And I'm walking down there, and all of a sudden I see this beautiful woman, young lady, like waving at me, and it's kind of like one of these things. That she waving at me, and I look back. No, she's waving at me. And she said, "Hey, didn't I see you the other night with my friend at the club?" And I'm saying, "No, I think mistaken." "Oh, are you American?" Yeah. And she went on, "Oh, how she loves Americans and practicing her English and yada yada yada. Oh, would you like to go? How about can we grab a coffee over here?" And I said, "This is exactly what the book said, and I just politely disengaged. I said I was on my way to a meeting, but have a good day. But it's amazing. These things can save you from what could be losing hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in some cases.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then they will try every scam in the book, and they work on a lot of people. Many countries recognize the issues that some of their tourists have. And I think you said that you were in Egypt. I was also in Egypt, and you go to the pyramids, and the merchants that are selling in the little shops right there, selling collectibles and things to take home. Those merchants are very strictly regulated by the Egyptian government to the point that they cannot come out of their stall area to come ask you if you would like to buy something. They can call you from their stall, but they are not allowed to approach you. And that's just one example that some of the countries they do recognize that their tourism industry can be a bit pushy, so they try not to do that.
So, wow, I mean, so we're going to talk a lot more about, we got a lot more to talk about travel security, international travel security at our upcoming next podcast. When's that going to be, Jeffrey?
Keep talking.
Yeah. Well, but I do want to make a recommendation. It's gonna be 2 days, 2 weeks from now, exactly on Monday. With every Monday, these podcasts are going to be every other Monday. I'm sorry, every 14 days they're going to be dropped. And before
Second.
sorry,
June 2nd?
June the
June
2nd.
16th. June 16th. Excuse me. June
Okay, yeah.
16th.
June the 16th, and we still have a continuation of travel security. And before then, though, I highly recommend, if you haven't seen already, there's this really outstanding series on National Geographic entitled Locked Up Abroad. And it's been running now for several years, several seasons. But I mean, if you want to see really what the circumstances for a number of individuals, and, how do they get in? How do they go to the country? Why were they there? And then what did they do that ended up in them being incarcerated? And I mean, the experiences are incredible. So take advantage and take a look at some of those cases.
I would describe them more as horrific than incredible. But yes,
Didn't
take.
want, yeah, I want to try to get people to watch a little bit of it.
Oh no, they got to watch it. But yeah, you got you don't want to go to a foreign jail. Jails in this country are hotel-like
Yes.
in comparison to many of the jails around the world. So at any rate, thank you very much, Brother Pete.
You
What else
too.
we
Take care
got?
and see you next time.
Take care.